Hi, so what I've laid out, I've got an A3 pad here. This is cartridge sketch pad, but you can use absolutely anything just while you're practicing. I usually use my sketchbook, but I've gone for A3 because what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you one portrait here in proportions that I started off with at school, and then I'm going to show you another one here with proportions that I've learnt as an adult that I prefer. So I'll do you the two to compare, and for you as well. So always try things, see if you like it, because what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. What I have got here, I've got my tin of pencils. I'm going to be using quite a soft pencil, so it's quite dark so that you'll be able to see it okay. So I'm starting off with a 7B. In your pencils, I would recommend, either if you're not quite sure with them, start off with either HB or 2B. So HBB, 2B, they're the great ones to start off with. I always say they're like the Ford Fiesta. You can't go wrong with either of those. And then the higher up the B, it gets darker and softer. So that's great for all your shadows. And then going into the H's, so this tin that I've got an F and a B in this one, but I know some tins, some collections that you get go all the way up to 9H. The H's are very hard and very light. So because they're really hard, that means that you can really sharpen it to a nice point. They're great for all the details. So details around the eye, to draw in even little eyebrows, eyelashes. So the H's are best for that. So that's in the range of things. And what I always get everyone to start off with your pencils, do a little shading, because even if you've got 3 different 2Bs, every single 2B will be completely different considering the brand. Some will be lighter, some will be darker. So you've got to know your equipment. So always do a little sketch to see how dark or light you are. But I'm going to get going. So I'm going to stick, I've got my dark pencil, 7B. I'm going to stick over here. I'll just put those down a sec to get going. So what we'll do an oval. So this is the oval for my face. And I always say, these portraits that we're going to do look crazy. They always look like mug shots, but just bear with me because it's just breaking down the proportions and what to look for. So we've got our oval from the top of the head to the bottom of the head. This is the traditional portrait. You break it in half and that's going to give you the eye line. From there, so this proportion, so you can, if you're precise, I'm not, I just always do it with my fingers. Or because you've always got the pencil in your hands, you can take a measurement and see if it roughly matches up. So that's halfway. Halfway again is going to take you to the nose. Halfway again, so again, breaking it in half, breaking that in half again. That's going to give you the mouth line. So this is the top of the head. So the hair is going to sit below this. We'll just put that in for a sec. And this is where all the facial features are going to go. So that's just breaking it up for you to start off with. So starting with the middle and the eyes, I'm going to put the eyes in. Before I do that, with the eyes, it's knowing the spacings. A common mistake when you first draw the eye is to go too big. So if I put an eye in here, put one on the other side, they're far too big. Eyes are always smaller than what you think they are. And the other thing with the eye is you have spacing. There's something called the third eye that you might have heard about, and that is taking the measurement of one eye, and you should be able to get that measurement in the middle, and then you've got another one. So there should be roughly 5 eyes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see my eyes are too big. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that just for a second with the eye, and then come to the bottom of the nose, because there's a couple of things. So you've got the third eye in the middle, which should be roughly the same distance as the eye, and then the other thing you've got is there should be an equilateral triangle from the outside of the eyes to the bottom of the nose. And you can see here, this isn't. So we know the eyes need to come in. So I'm going to bring that in. There we go. So the outer corner of my eye is going to be there. That's the outer corner of my eye, and that's the bottom of the nose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an eye in either side. So with the eye, what I'm going to do, start off with the tear duct and then come up. So we've got an oval. And when you're drawing eyes and features, it's quite nice to do it in a blocky style. So I'm coming up, going across, coming across the other side. And I'm going to do that underneath as well. So that's my eye. Above the eye, we're going to have an eyelid. So a similar line above it. And then above that, we're going to have the eyebrow. So I always do vertical line, coming diagonal, and then they come horizontal. So that's for your eyebrow. In the eye itself, we've got the tear duct on the inner eye, inner centre. So this is the whole tear duct bit. Then we've got the eyeball. And then within the eyeball, we have the iris and the pupil. And it always looks really good, really crazy at this stage. So what to do is pop a highlight in, and then we can darken up that pupil, and it looks really crazy, like a crazy eye, and it's staring at you. So what to do, just throw a shadow over the top of that eye. There we go. And you might want to put some eyelashes in. So just thicken that top bit. There we go. So it's not looking as crazy and staring at you. I'm going to do the same over here. I'm going to do my tear duct. And again, whatever you've got on one side, you want the other side. So I'm going to draw a line down the centre to help me make sure I've got the same one side to the other side. And remember, everyone is slightly different on each side of their face, which is the great thing. If you look at your face in the mirror, you will have areas that don't quite line up perfectly, which is brilliant when you're sketching to do the same, not have them lining up perfectly. Again, we've got that eye staring at you, so always put the pupils in exactly the same place. So you want to see the whites of the eyes, you want to see the same on either side. If the eyes are turned, you're going to see the same distance of white on the outer edges. So that's going to stop them going boss-eyed, basically. And put the pupil in, shade the iris, and then do our shading above it. Pop some eyelashes on, thicken up. You're just thickening up that top line. Pop a bit of a eyelid, and then the eyebrow. So the eyebrow, I'm giving a distance, coming above, doing a vertical line, going diagonal, curving over the eye, coming straight. So it's always that same way that the hair grows. If you look again, always look, have a mirror close by, always check it to the mirror. So you got vertical, diagonal, coming straight. Right, so they're my eyes, and I can do a little test. I'm going to take a measurement of an eye from the tear duct all the way to the outer edge and do a measurement in the middle. So I've roughly got the same in the middle. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to come onto my nose. So this is the end of my nose. And then from there, I'm going to do some nostrils. These are the nostrils. I was going to say, we've got a curve, so I always say that's a U, like a U shape, and then you round it off either side to give you nostrils, and then add curves either side to bring those nostrils in. With the nose, try not to draw the nose, instead it's all about the shading. So to bring this nose in now, you'll always have shading where the nostrils meet the side of the nose. So I'm going to pop that shading in there. You will get slight shading at the side of these nostrils because of the cheek. I'm going to pop that in. And then you'll have the shading at the top here. So where the nose comes up to meet the eyebrow, you'll have a dark shadow either side of that nose going down to the eye. So do the same the other side roughly. So what to do is always, with your shading, always have thicker areas, lightening up, getting smaller, going darker. And it's starting to come out the paper already. The other thing, always be aware of bits that stand out and where the highlights will be. So the highlight is going to be on the end of this nose. Because the nose goes under, you're going to have slight shadow under there, because that's going down. So always think about your 3D shapes, what's sticking out, and it's going to have the highlight on the top. So this is like a ball, so you have your highlight on the top and the shadow coming underneath. And then we're going to come down to our mouth. I always think, this is just personal preference, there's quite a big gap, so I'm going to do the top lip above it. This is going to be the middle of the mouth, and I'm going to give it the Cupid's bow on top, so it's a bit like an M shape. So we've got the M on the top coming down. And the other thing when you're lining things up, so these are just basic measurements for lining up, so the outer edges of the eye to the nose. The other thing, if you bring a line down from the pupil, it should line you up to the outer edges of the mouth. So this is my M shape of the mouth. I'm not going to take it completely out to here because I'll show you why in a minute. This is the top of the mouth. So I've got that M shape, bringing it out. You can make it, this is a brilliant thing with this, you can make it wider, slimmer, whatever you like. The middle of the mouth is ever so slightly follows the same shape as the top, but ever so slightly. And then we have the bottom of the lip. So you can keep these, sometimes less is more. If you're doing portrait, sometimes you might just want to do it as that and don't draw in the whole mouth. And then it's all about the shading. So again, what sticks out and what doesn't. The top lip is generally, because it's going in, it's generally more shaded. So I'm going to put a shade over that top lip. The bottom lip protrudes more, sticks out more, so you generally get the light hitting it, especially in these areas here, these bits. So if I bring it up, I'm going to do just a little bit of light shading at the side there and across. At the ends here, the reason why, like if I draw this in to show you, always looks a little bit crazy when you fully draw it in. So it's better if at the sides here you always get that slight dimple shadow of the mouth. It's better to leave it to let the shading talk for itself rather than draw that all in. Let the shading talk for itself. I'll bring that down. And then we'll pop a chin in as well. I've just grabbed some rubbers because I'm just going to take some of this out, this craziness, but I just wanted to show you the different rubbers. So you've got your classic, this is hard rubber, hard because it doesn't bend that much. If you're using it, always make sure it's clean before you're using it. So even on scrap piece of paper, I'm going to do it, this is just on the outside of the sketch pad. And look, you can see here, this is a good example. If you don't use a clean rubber, it's going to leave all dirty marks over your drawing. So always make sure it's clean. I always rub it out at the side or on a scrap piece of paper. And then you can remove areas, giving you a nice clean area. The other rubbers that you can get are, I've got this one which is brilliant for portraits. It's the Mono Zero Tombow eraser, and you can get into all those little fine details and rub out the tiny areas, so that's brilliant. And the other thing that's great for portraits is the putty rubber. So this is really soft. It's basically like blue tack, and you can use blue tack. You just knead it and you can just press it and it lightens it. So rather than taking out lots of shading, you can just press it onto your shading. And if I do a bit over here, I'll show you. And it just completely lightens it. So it's just lightened the shading around there. You don't want that lighter, so I'm going to put that back in, but this is looking better. Pop that back in. Then we're going to put jawline in. So with all of this, you can make it look as feminine or masculine as you like, as soft or as angular as you like as well. So you might think, right, this is my chin. So come in nice and soft. Technically, and everybody's different, but technically you come up, goes in, curves round, so where the mouth is, it curves round just ever so slightly, and then it's going to come up. I'm going to start here because I love starting in this little bit here. So where the eyebrow comes in, and again, if you look at yourself in the mirror, the gap between the outer eye to the edge of the face is quite small. It's not as wide as that. So I'm going to bring this in. Where the eyebrow is, it always angles in for the eye, comes out for that brow line and up. So where it's gone in for the eye, I'm going to come out for the cheekbone. This will be the whole cheek, the cheekbone up here. This is the whole cheek. Coming down. So again, I've got that soft curve. So this is really soft, what I've done here. But you can, on the other extreme, and this is quite nice when you're practicing, you can really angle it as well. So I'm going to angle that up. Making this more of a angled face. So this is great. This is nice soft face, whereas this is more of the heart-shaped face that you can get. So changing it, and it's not changing it by much, you can get the different sides of the face. So when you're experimenting, you can experiment on the same face. If you're finding that looking a bit too crazy for you, then just try and match up what you've got. So if I just try and match it up to the other side and just soften. And the other great thing that I love to do, which I'll show you in a minute, is to put lots of hair coming round. That's looking like quite a slim face, so we can bring that out a little bit. It's funny, you only need tiny little changes in your curves to make it look different. And then what I've got under there, I've just got the neck coming through. So we've got eyes, nose, mouth and chin. The other side, this is the top of the head. Put the top of the head in. And then I'm going to give her some hair. I love doing hair because you can just go really wild and free with it. So I'm going to give her a bit of a fringe. I decided to make this into a woman. I think because I am a woman, female. I like drawing girls. And then you can do straight hair, curly hair. So just bringing all this down. it's quite nice to play around, again going a little bit blocky and sectioning. So I've just blocked off the top there. I quite like doing these straight lines when you do a curve, but then pop these straight lines in. When you look at hair, you'll often get hair in clumps of sections, and I know that sounds a bit silly, but that it will move, it will section together. So, I'm just going to add a shade in there, because it will always be darker in those back bits. And then under here we'll have a shade in, because the chin, the face is sticking out, causing a shadow underneath. We'll have a shade either side as well. So from there, just put some hair in. And this is where, if you don't like the side of the face that you've done, you can cover it with hair as well. I love that. When you're drawing, especially when you're making it up, you can hide a multitude of sins, any bits that you don't like. Let's shade that in. Should we give her a little bit of modesty with some cloves? Be shadow up there at the top. So this is the other thing. Always think about where bits are sticking out and where bits are going back. So generally highlight. So these bits here stick out, so they often have a highlight on them, and then they'll slightly get darker to the sides, getting darkest as it gets to this corner around the eye. Likewise, it will get darker as it goes down the side of that face. She'll have a shadow down there. So I'm just doing the shadow down the side of the face. I love the bit underneath the mouth, I forgot to do. Here we go. So you often get that little bit there. Sometimes it is a shadow directly underneath the mouth, because everybody's different, which is brilliant. So you can either do the shadow underneath the mouth or do that really strong shadow there. And again, because the chin curves under, you're going to have a shadow at the bottom there. Just going to do that shadow down the side as well. What I've done, I've tried to go round the cheek area. Be careful as well when you are shading. If you do too hard shading too soon, it can really make them look a bit poorly. So I'll show you what I mean. If I give her, when you look in the mirror, especially me, my age, got bags, especially if you've got kids, so you'll have these big heavy bags. But if you go too dark with this shading, even the lines, you're going to make them look a bit scary and as if they haven't seen daylight for weeks. So just be really soft with your shading. I'm just going to soften that back. And then just lightly shade in again. So try and be, with shading around like the eyes and on the face, just try and be soft and subtle with it. If you're too hard, it can be a bit too harsh. And then the thing I've left out is the dip from the nose to the mouth. So you often get, it dips in that centre bit. You will always as well, sorry, going back to the highlights, because you'll have a highlight above that lip. And it sounds crazy, but there's always a highlight at the top of that lip. So that's why I'm not going all the way down. So I'm putting shadow in. There will be shadow under that nose. Again, because the nose sticks out, so you're causing a shadow onto the nose. And then where I've got that, so that goes in, so it's shadow. You'll have a highlight either side, and then you'll get the shadow again coming in. So always be aware of your shadows and your highlights. This one's a really dark shadow and this is a lot softer. That's why I'm doing that a lot softer. And then where it all starts looking like the same, you can just increase some shadows to give it the shaping back. There we go. So again, you're going to have highlight, top here, top of the eyes, top of the nose. So that dips in a little bit. Going to have highlights on the cheeks, and that comes in around the side of the face. There'll be a highlight there as well for the chin, so a soft shade in there. And it's coming together. This is where I call them the mug shots, because it does look a bit crazy. It's a generic face, just showing you the proportions and where things sit. So that is the halfway point. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it again on the other side, showing you breaking it down into threes, which I actually prefer. So I'm going to just stop it there, move my paper across.